Look, I get it. There are a lot of opinions and misconceptions when it comes to video games and video game music. Today, my hope is that maybe we can dispel some of the things you might have heard or even said yourself when it comes to music of video games. Here's 6 things people get wrong about video game music and a whole lot of opinion from me, a former professional opera singer who loves video games and their music. If there aren't lyrics, it isn't real music. Holy shit, I don't even know where to start with that one. That's simply not true. How can anybody say that? I mean, no offense if you feel that way, but like, what is your definition of music? Because music spans hundreds of different genres and styles. Now, granted, I'll give you something. Real music on the radio is perforated with lyrics. And so naturally, lyrics do help us connect to stories in their music better. Lyrics, their purpose is to help tell the story, much like in the same way that instrumental music is there to help us tell a story. So if you don't really spend a lot of time listening to classical music or music that not even classical music, like a banjo music or heavy metal that doesn't have lyrics, I could get why that's like a feeling that you have, but lyrics don't music make. They're just a part of it. Lyrics tell a story, just like music itself does. And I wanted to come at you with a couple examples. For instance, let's say you love Metallica or you love like heavy metal. Well, have you ever heard of Key Gen Church and Tenebroso Sangue from Ultra Kill? Well, maybe you haven't, but just listen to some of this. Did you feel anything while listening to that? Like, was that a piece that you felt like needed lyrics in order to move you, in order to make you feel invigorated, challenged, like you're fighting against hordes of demons? Was there any part of that you felt was lacking because there weren't lyrics in it? Did you feel like that needed lyrics for the lyrics to say, hey, we're off to war, we're fighting this thing, oh, I'm in hell, can you hear the organ? I'm really excited. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but my point is that like that piece in and of itself sets us up with a sense of excitement. There's a tension in that. The organ makes it feel like it's, old. There's a quality in it of danger. There's an intensity in it. And that intensity, I don't think, needs lyrics in order to tell the story of this battle. The idea that lyrics not being in a piece of music means that music isn't real, or is it? And what does that even mean? What does real music even mean? All right, well, for the sake of argument, what if we listen to Gwyn, Lord of Cinder from Dark Souls? Do you feel like the innate sense of sadness in that piece? Do you feel like that piece naturally, because of the way that the piano keys are being used and the upper register in the right hand and the middle register in the left hand, there's a quality of space in it? There's a feeling of immense sadness in that piece, of regret. Everything that you've ever loved or everything you've ever wanted has slipped through your fingers. That piece calls to me in that regard. Now, let's get one thing straight. Having lyrics in a piece of music will help us understand and connect to something more, without a shadow of a doubt. But to imply or even suggest that the only real music is music with lyrics is a very short-sighted, and I think it lacks a little bit of nuance, because it's really not true. I mean, music has been around for thousands of years, and not all of it had lyrics. That's a very singular look at possibly just what's on the radio. An example in the sphere of video games with lyrics is Nier. Those lyrics are in the Chaos language, a made-up language based on many different Romance languages. Do you know what those lyrics are or what they mean? Probably not. But I wonder if you can pick up on some of the subtlety being sung here. Now that's interesting to me because that has a lot of the same feelings that we may pull from the piece that we just heard, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. It's a little bit different, a little bit more sentimental, obviously much more feminine. There's a quality in that sound that's really gentle and light. There's an elegance to it with Emmy Evans' singing. There's a feeling of loss, not dissimilar to that of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, seeking something out and reaching out your hand and not being able to get to it. But this has lyrics, and I don't think that this is any more better or worse than the other two examples I played for you. Not only that, but also I just don't really agree with the idea that the only good music or the only real music that we, can really connect with on an emotional level is strictly music based around lyrics. It defies 100 years of musical history. Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Verdi, Bellini, Rossini, Berg, Gounod. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of folks that, yes, wrote lyrical music, wrote music for the church, wrote operas, wrote art songs, but they also wrote music that was instrumental, string quartets, orchestras, symphonic performances, Chopin polonaises, Chopin preludes, you name it. Some of the most powerful pieces of music I've ever heard are actually piano pieces that have no lyrics. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, one of my childhood favorite songs, or any of the nocturnes by Chopin. Some of the most famous music doesn't have lyrics. So I think that this is an incorrect take. Video game music is meant to be ignored. Now that's a take. Video game music is meant to be ignored? I don't think so. Now you may want to ignore it, but and theoretically, if you want to turn off your volume and let the journey take you along without the music indicating to you how you should think or feel, I can't discredit that. I mean, as a former professional opera singer, and yes, I love telling people that that's what I used to do, it's fair. I've actually recently done that with a video game. I turned the music off because the sound design was so phenomenal that it actually pulled me away and out of the experience. That being said, I don't necessarily agree that video game music is meant to be ignored. Video game music is a fundamentally important part, music is a fundamentally important part to the video game experience. Ambient music that we hear in World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV's melodic, gorgeous background music, any of that stuff is fundamentally important to the story structure. Think of a game like The Outer Wilds. When music appears in that game, it's intentional and very well thought out. It's there to make you feel at home and safe and protected, or any Final Fantasy game, which is supposed to make you feel like you're in the environment, living the world and experiencing it as you should. I just can't get behind the idea that you can actually ignore a track like this while playing something like Silent Hill 2. Ain't no way you didn't hear that in the background of playing Silent Hill 2 and nearly shit yourself, because I certainly did. I just can't fathom an idea that video game music is meant to be ignored, because so much of it is like integral to the experience. You may think you're ignoring it, but it's actually permeating inside of you and actually affecting the way that you experience the game. I mean, there's just no way, unless you turn it off and you don't want it to like influence how you feel. I can kind of get behind that, and I don't discredit that idea, but the idea that music should be ignored and that it's just sort of there and it's like whatever, it's like, no, horror games distinctly use music in order to compel us to feel a certain way, and all games do that. I mean, their purpose is to move us, to make us feel a connection. I find it very interesting that there are people that believe that sentiment, because I can't really get behind it. Video game music isn't as important as the game. So this is an interesting thought. On the one hand, it's a game. What do you need in order to have a game? Gameplay. I can't even really discredit that. That's a fair statement. But I kind of look at video games and video game music like a brownie. Let's say you make yourself a delicious brownie, or you buy a delicious brownie. It's perfect. Chocolatey, gooey, lots of chocolate chips. It's crunchy, it's moist, it's soft, it's delicious. It's great on its own, right? But now let's say you add a beautiful layer of cream cheese frosting. Cream cheese frosting just permeates your mouth when you eat this thing. It's perfect. It elevates this brownie to like another dimension. Suddenly it becomes a deliciously good brownie that you bought to literally the best thing ever. That's how much music influenced the gameplay experience. You can't just have one without the other. Music and gameplay are fundamentally a united front. Their goal ultimately is to make us feel, to connect us to musical experiences, to connect us to storytelling experiences, to relate to our characters that we're interacting with, to explain and showcase intense situations, to elevate those situations. Because imagine going through a World War II shooter with no music. It would just be sound. And maybe that would be kind of cool because you could place yourself in the environment. I mean, there was no soundtrack during World War II, right? Of course. But on the flip side, it's incredible how music can actually dictate subtext to us. We can connect to characters and their thoughts and their feelings more deeply because of the music helping us to understand what the characters' perspectives are. Music is as important to the game. It's fundamentally an asset and something that is desperately needed in order to elevate a gaming experience. Yes, of course, a game has to have good gameplay in order to be played. That's just the fundamental fact. But I really think that the game wouldn't be as good without music. Video game music is still misrepresented as something it's not. It's funny because right now we're in a time where if you go to any video game music concert, it is almost always completely sold out. Maybe there's like a few seats left, but in general, video game music is not just on the TV. It's changed a lot. It's not just beeps and boops. And it's not even to say that beeps and boops aren't great. It's just that we live in a time now where every single genre exists within the space of video game music. It's incredible how big this bubble actually is. Every time I've invited a non-gamer to come and listen to video game music, more often than not, the thing that they say is that they feel sometimes that they are shackled by the rigidness of the classical music industry, especially if they're a performer or a musician. Now, video games, if you want EDM, you can have EDM. If you want classical, you can have classical. If you want chiptune and that old 80s, 90s sound, you can have it. We can also mix all of those things together and create new identities. Because of the nature of the digital aspect of gaming, the world is our oyster. I mean, yeah, sometimes you hear classical music mixed with hip hop, and that's really cool out in the modern mainstream perspective, where you hear like electric swing, or you hear, jazz fusion. But I do think that video games is actually the home of a lot of advancements when it comes to experimentation. And not experimentation like in an academic sense. Experimentation when it comes to really trying to tell a story through emotion and through music. Emotion and music are synonymous. They're abundantly important. You can't just compose a piece without putting feeling into it. Really, no composer does that in their right mind anyway. And so the idea that we're still lagging behind and that like video games need some sort of a boost in order for their sounds to be justified is actually a really crazy thing to me. They're not beeps and boops anymore. Some may say that beeps and boops sound was the golden age of video game music, and that's the truest sense of video games as a sound font. That the music of the 80s, late 80s, early 90s is really where video games were at their most experimental because of the technology limitations. And to that I actually agree with. And it's interesting because now video games are actually hearkening all the way back to classical music, and we do hear classical sweeping orchestral suites and so on and so forth in modern video games. I don't think that that's a bad thing. It's just really interesting how far we've come. We've actually circled all the way back now that we have the capacity to do it with live concerts and recorded orchestras and recorded ensembles and so on and so forth. But again, the genre push here is incredible. If you want big band jazz, you've got it. You want hip hop, you've got it. You want swing, you've got it. The possibilities are kind of endless when it comes to music and video games, and it's really, really, really fascinating. There's so much money that comes in from games, and games make more money than movies at this point. And yet games are still like the weird stepbrother over in the corner that's like, hey, it's me, mom, dad, love me too. I don't get why that is. It's also interesting because movie music over the last couple, maybe last 5-10 years has become pretty generic. Like, yeah, it helps tell the story. It helps move the story along. It's well produced because there's so much money backing it, but it ultimately is kind of forgettable. I can't remember the last movie I saw where I was actively thinking about the themes afterwards musically. Maybe Avengers? Maybe? anything that Michael Giacchino does. Video games, though, have this melodic identity. They keep us glued to our TVs. They guide us along on our journey, and they repeat in a way that enables them to be earworms and be stuck in our hearts and in our minds, and connect us to characters, whether we're playing the game concurrently or thinking about them when we lay down in bed after a long day. Now, obviously not everything, but how many of you boot up Modern Warfare 3 or something, and you hear that main menu and you know that main menu theme? Or let's say you booted up Assassin's Creed Valhalla when it was out. These modern games that people don't really think about having really good music or whatever actually have great soundtracks, and the main menus of those two games that I mentioned are still ones that you will think about, even if you may not be able to hum them. They still permeate. That's because also, we're around them all the time. People boot up Modern Warfare 3 every day to play it. You know what I mean? So like the idea that video game music is somehow like this archaic thing that hasn't evolved in the last 40 years is crazy. You can't dance to video game music. Well, frankly, I haven't gone to a club in probably about 15 years, so I can't actually tell you whether or not that's a valid argument, but I've listened to enough EDM and fun dance music to actually counter this with some examples. Here's Versus Yinu from No Straight Roads, the EDM version. Oh, chiptune, bopping your head. It would be absurd to not bop your head to that. Or what about Sonic Mania Stardust Speedway Zone Act 1? I mean, nothing like rolling up next to your honey and bop into this piece. But what about this one from Rift of the Necrodancer? It's called Amalgamaniac. I don't know, man. That just makes me want to move. It's amazing. So, I think it's just a question of like finding the pieces, but they're out there. The pieces to dance to are absolutely available to you. There's a whole sector of people making video game music that's based around clubbing and dancing. And look at a person like James Landino, one of the composers we listened to today from Versus Yino. All of this music is based around dance club identity. Look at any rhythm game that's naturally going to have a faster BPM that will actually move you and maybe even get you up out of your chair, or maybe even be able to be performed at a club. I've seen James has DJ'd his own music at a club, so it's definitely possible, and people have been dancing in those clips. Music without the video game is pointless. This one's really interesting to me because I really just don't agree. So much of my enjoyment has been derived from listening to music outside of its given context, to the point that I don't believe that context is necessarily the end-all be-all when it comes to gaming experiences. Now, I know that your average person may disagree with me, and that's really okay. I really believe that there are multiple ways to approach it. You can approach it from the angle of playing the game first, experiencing the game, and then listening to that soundtrack afterwards and being like, okay, so this is why I like this, or this makes me think of this character, or this makes me think of this, and that, and the other. Or you approach it by listening to the music first, being like, wow, I wonder what this is going to look like, and then playing it and experiencing the context of it. That's magic. When you make your own assumptions or your own thought processes about why something is the way it is, and then actually discover what the truth is, that opens up so much mental possibility, and it opens that mental door into seeing something come to life. I used to do this a lot as an opera singer. I would listen to a piece of music, study it because I was singing it, and then when I actually experienced the context of it, it was like, wow, that is so cool. Most of my childhood was listening to music from Final Fantasy out of context, and I always felt like I connected more to the story experience because of listening to the music outside of the game specific instance. To say that music without a video game is pointless is sad, because I just don't believe that. There's so much joy that can come from listening to something that you've had an incredibly positive and intense emotional experience with, whatever the emotion you felt while playing the gaming experience, and then taking it away and then coming back to it later and mixing the two together. You mix your lived context with in-game context. And I really think like that opens so much potential for enjoyment and for discovering things about yourself, discovering things about your favorite characters, discovering stuff about music itself. These are 6 things that I think people get wrong about video game music. I may not change your mind. That's not really my point. I just wanted to come on here and bitch and moan about it. I really just wanted to come on here and talk about some of these statements because it's crazy how much is out there and how many ideas exist about music. And while no one is always going to agree with me about my perspective about music, I do think it's important to at least be able to be open and honest about it. So if you have a hot take about video game music that you've been afraid to share, I can't guarantee that the YouTube comments won't actually fight you about it, but I certainly won't. I'd love to hear what your hot takes are, and maybe did this video change your mind about those hot takes? Maybe it didn't, maybe it reinforced them. That's totally okay. We're all individuals with our own different feelings and opinions, and I'd love to know yours. Thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.